The communication array on Veilthin Prime sparked and crackled as Ambassador HFY adjusted the transmission frequency one last time. His 3 arms trembled as he manipulated the controls, purple blood seeping from wounds where Korvac biodrones had grazed him during his escape from the capital city. Behind him, the massive crystal spires that had stood for 10,000 years were being dissolved into grey sludge by the advancing swarm. This is Ambassador HFY of the Velthani Coalition, broadcasting on all galactic frequencies. His voice echoed across the vast emptiness of space, reaching thousands of worlds. Our 3 systems are under attack by the Korvac Empire. We are dying. Through the shattered dome of the communication center, HFY could see the nightmare unfolding above his world. Massive bioships, each the size of a small moon, hung in the crimson sky like diseased organs. Their surfaces pulsed with veins of sickly green light as they pumped digestive acids onto the cities below. Smaller vessels, looking like flying insects made of bone and sinew, swarmed between the buildings, harvesting everything organic they could find. The Korvac broke through our quantum shield 6 hours ago. HFY continued, his voice cracking. Our plasma cannons worked at first, destroying dozens of their scouts. But then their ships began to change. The same weapons that killed their advanced units now pass harmlessly through their hulls. They adapt faster than we can modify our defenses. A thunderous roar shook the building as one of the harvester ships landed nearby. HFY could hear the screams of his people being processed, their bodies broken down into base proteins to feed the ever-hungry swarm. His mandibles clicked nervously as he pressed on with the transmission. We estimate 72 hours before complete planetary consumption. Our evacuation ships are being intercepted by biofighters that seem to predict our every move. 3 billion souls across our 3 worlds face extinction. We offer our complete technological database, our star charts, even our sovereign worlds to any species willing to provide military assistance. The message streaked across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds, reaching the great powers within hours. On Zentori Prime, the Insectoid Council of Hives received the transmission during their daily feeding cycle. High Matron Zixka barely paused from consuming her protein paste as she dictated a response. The Coalition's fate is unfortunate, but the Zentori Collective cannot risk our own swarms against such an adaptive enemy. We offer sanctuary to any survivors who reach our borders. The crystalline beings of the Shardak Republic were equally dismissive. Their geometric thought forms calculated the odds of success against the Korvac at less than 12%. Resource expenditure not justified for such minimal probability of positive outcome, they transmitted back in their cold, mathematical language. Even the mighty Garathan Empire, masters of dark matter manipulation and conquerors of 50 star systems, sent only a brief message. The Korvac had consumed 17 species in the last century. We will not be the 18th. But 6 to 7 light-years away, on a blue-green world orbiting an unremarkable yellow star, the message reached a different kind of species entirely. Captain James Morrison was finishing his 3rd cup of coffee in the Terra Defense Command bunker when the priority alert flashed across his screen. He set down his mug, noting how his hand remained steady despite the caffeine, and opened the file. The translation software quickly converted HFY's alien speech into crisp English. Morrison had seen desperate pleas before, but something about the Coalition's message made his stomach tighten. Maybe it was a raw terror in the ambassador's voice, or the way the bio-reading showed entire cities being liquefied in real time. He pulled up the tactical assessment his computers had automatically generated. 3 star systems, billions of civilians, an enemy that adapted to every weapon deployed against it. Lisa, get me Admiral Hayes on the emergency channel. He called to his communications officer. Sir, the Admiral's in a meeting with the Joint Chiefs about the Proxima mining dispute. Lieutenant Lisa Parker replied. Override it. Priority Alpha. Within 90 seconds, Admiral Rebecca Hayes' weathered face appeared on Morrison's screen. Her gray eyes immediately focused on the tactical data scrolling beside her image. Hayes had commanded fleets through the Titan Wars and the Android Rebellion. She could read a battle situation faster than most people could blink. How long do they have, Captain? She asked without preamble. 72 hours. Maybe less if the Korvac accelerate their consumption rate. Hayes studied the bioship formations attacking the Coalition worlds. The systematic approach reminded her of something from Earth's own history, locusts stripping a field bare, leaving nothing but devastation. But these locusts were intelligent, adaptive, and had already wiped out 17 other species. Morrison said quietly, "They need us." Hayes watched as another coalition city vanished beneath a tide of gray dissolution. 3 billion people, crying out across the void for anyone brave enough to answer. Every other major power had already turned away, unwilling to face an enemy that could adapt to any weapon. She thought about Earth's own struggles, humanity's long climb from a world of endless wars to the stars themselves. They'd learned hard lessons about what happened when good people did nothing in the face of evil. Hayes activated her command beacon, sending emergency signals to every human fleet commander in known space. On dozens of worlds, alarms began blaring in military installations. Shipyard workers looked up from their projects as massive screens displayed a single, familiar message. All fleet commanders, Priority Alpha, we're going to war. The massive war room aboard the flagship Defiance buzzed with activity as holographic displays materialized around the central command table. Admiral Rebecca Hayes stood at the center, her weathered hands gripping the metal surface as data streams from across the galaxy fed into the tactical computers. The room's curved walls displayed a three-dimensional map of Elthani space, where thousands of red dots representing Korvac bioships moved like a spreading infection. General Michael Thompson arrived first, his boots clicking against the polished deck plates. Behind him came Captain David Mitchell, Colonel Lisa Barrett, and a dozen other senior officers from across the human fleet. Each carried data tablets loaded with preliminary assessments of the crisis unfolding 6 to 7 light years away. "Gentlemen, ladies," Hayes began without ceremony, "we have a situation that requires immediate decision. The Korvac Empire is systematically consuming the Velthani coalition. Every major galactic power has refused to intervene." The holographic displays zoomed in on the 3 coalition worlds. Veilthan Prime appeared as a brown and gray sphere, its once blue oceans now churning with digestive chemicals. The bio-ship surrounding it pulsed with organic light as they pumped acids onto the planet's surface. "Conventional military response will be a defensive action," General Thompson stated, "studying the enemy formations. Deploy a battle group to the outer system, establish evacuation corridors, extract as many civilians as possible before the planets are fully consumed." Captain Mitchell nodded in agreement. "Standard rescue doctrine, sir. We could probably save maybe 10% of their population if we move fast. Set up refugee camps in the outer asteroids. Hold the line until they finish processing the main worlds." Hayes remained silent, her gray eyes fixed on the tactical display. She watched as another coalition defense station was overrun by clusters of insect-like fighters. Each bioship that died seemed to transmit its destruction to the others, allowing the swarm to adapt its tactics in real time. "Conventional response fails," Hayes replied coldly, her voice cutting through the room's electronic humming. "Look at this data stream. The Korvac don't negotiate. They don't retreat. They don't take prisoners or establish occupying forces. They consume everything until there's nothing left but empty worlds." Colonel Barrett pulled up historical files on her tablet. "Admiral, we've studied their previous campaigns. The pattern is always the same. They arrive, adapt to local defenses within hours, then strip everything organic from the target worlds. 17 species have gone extinct facing exactly this scenario." Captain Mitchell leaned forward, highlighting sections of the enemy fleet composition. "Their bioships are incredible, Admiral. Watch this footage from the Zenthri Wars 20 years ago." The display showed sleek crystalline vessels firing energy beams at organic-looking Korvac ships. The first few strikes tore through their hulls, but within minutes, identical weapons were passing harmlessly through the adaptive armor. "They learn faster than any species can modify their tactics," Thompson observed grimly. The Zenthri had superior technology, better strategic position, home field advantage. Didn't matter. Within 6 months, their entire civilization was biomass feeding the Korvac breeding colonies. Hayes nodded, but her expression remained hard. Captain Mitchell showed them the tactical analysis from the Korvac extinction. The hologram shifted to show another star system, this one completely barren. Dead worlds orbited a dim red star, their surfaces scraped clean of any organic material. The Korvac Empire controlled 43 worlds, Mitchell explained. They had quantum shields, antimatter weapons, clone armies numbering in the billions. The Korvac adapted to everything they threw at them. Look at the final battle. The display showed massive geometric warships surrounding a single Korvac hive ship the size of a small moon. Antimatter torpedoes exploded against its surface in brilliant flashes, but the creature simply absorbed the energy and continued advancing. Within hours, the entire Korvac fleet was being dissolved by acid sprays. 200 years of this, Hayes said quietly. 17 species. Hundreds of billions of sentient beings processed into protein paste to feed their expansion. And every galactic power just accepts it as natural selection. Colonel Barrett frowned. What alternative do we have? The Korvac Empire spans 50 star systems. Our entire fleet is maybe 300 ships. Even if we could hurt them, they'd adapt within days and come for Earth next. Hayes activated a command interface, and suddenly the room's displays changed. Instead of showing the distant battle, they now displayed the Sol system and humanity's military installations. Massive shipyards orbited Mars, their construction bay filled with partially completed cruisers and destroyers. Around Jupiter, automated factories processed asteroids into armor plating and weapon systems. Then we don't fight their war, Hayes declared. We fight ours. Her fingers danced across the holographic controls, and suddenly alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights bathed the war room in red as Hayes activated humanity's most extreme military protocol. Total War Authorization Omega. Her voice echoed through the ship's communication system. All fleet commanders report to battle stations. All shipyards shift to emergency production. All civilian vessels report for military conversion. The officers around the table stayed in shock as similar alerts activated across 12 human star systems. On Luna, massive doors slid open to reveal missile silos that hadn't been used since the Android Wars. Around Proxima Centauri, mining ships received automated signals to report for weapon installation. Even the agricultural ships in the outer colonies began receiving modification orders. Admiral, Colonel Barrett said slowly, are we really mobilizing the entire human military for one alien coalition we've never even met? Hayes turned from the displays, her eyes reflecting the red emergency lighting. No, Colonel, we're mobilizing to end the Korvac Empire forever. They've had 200 years to perfect their tactics against offensive thinking. Time to show them what happens when humans go on the offensive. Captain Mitchell pulled up resource allocation charts. This level of mobilization, we're talking about converting our entire industrial capacity to military production. Every factory, every shipyard, every mining operation. Correct, Hayes replied without hesitation. The coalition asked for help. We're going to give them something better. We're going to give them the complete extinction of their enemies. The space around Veilthan Prime shimmered as reality tore open in 4 to 7 separate locations. Massive human warships materialized from hyperspace, their angular hulls gleaming with fresh armor plating and weapon arrays. The flagship Defiance led the formation, its kilometer-long frame bristling with rail guns and missile pods that had been hastily installed during the 3-day journey. Ambassador Kethvar watched from his makeshift command bunker as the human fleet took position near the outer asteroid belt. His heart sank as he counted the vessels. 4 to 7 ships against the thousands of Korvac biovessels that filled the space around his dying worlds. The humans had come, just as they promised, but their numbers seemed pathetically small. They are brave, whispered Commander Veltar, his second-in-command, but this is suicide. Those bioships will adapt to their weapons within the hour. Kethvar activated his communication array with trembling hands. Perhaps he could convince the humans to retreat, to save themselves before the Korvac swarm noticed them. But before he could speak, Admiral Hayes' voice crackled through the speakers. Ambassador Kethvar, this is Admiral Rebecca Hayes of the Terran Defense Force. We've received your distress call and are implementing Total War Protocol. I need you to evacuate all Coalition personnel from the following sectors immediately. The holographic display in Kethvar's bunker suddenly filled with a 3-dimensional star map. Entire star systems flashed red, highlighting dozens of worlds scattered across 100 light-year radius. The ambassador's mandibles clicked in confusion as he studied the display. Admiral Hayes, he stammered, I think there's been an error in your navigation systems. Those red sectors, they contain Korvac colonial worlds and breeding stations, not Coalition territory. Our people are only in the 3 systems under attack. There was a pause before Hayes responded, and when she did, her voice carried a cold certainty that made Kethvar's skin crawl. No error, Ambassador. We're not here to repel an invasion. We're here to end the Korvac Empire's ability to wage war against anyone ever again. Across the galaxy, space began to ripple in ways that defied detection. Human stealth ships, invisible to conventional sensors, emerged from the dark spaces between stars. These vessels had spent weeks positioning themselves near every known Korvac world, using advanced cloaking technology that bent light around their hulls. Near the breeding world of Morthak, Captain William Davis commanded the stealth destroyer Silent Thunderstar. His ship hung motionless in space, just outside the detection range of the massive organic defense platforms that orbited the planet. Through his viewport, he could see the horror below, a world covered in writhing flesh, where millions of Korvac larvae fed on the processed remains of extinct species. Captain, his weapons officer reported, we're detecting biosignatures from at least 12 different species on the surface. The Korvac are using them as breeding stock. Davis felt his jaw tighten. The intelligence reports hadn't fully conveyed the scope of the atrocity. This wasn't just a military installation. It was a factory for genocide, turning the bodies of conquered peoples into more Korvac warriors. Remember, he told his Marines over the ship's intercom, every extinct species they consumed. The Velthari artists who painted with light, the crystal singers of Shard Prime, the Gorvac engineers who built cities in space. We're not just fighting for the Coalition. We're fighting for everyone who can't fight anymore. Meanwhile, in deep space near the Korvac frontier, massive human factory ships began their work. These vessels, originally designed for asteroid mining, had been hastily converted during the journey from Earth. Now they latched onto floating chunks of rock and ice, their industrial fabricators working at maximum speed to convert raw materials into something far more deadly. Commander Jessica Roberts watched from the bridge of the factory ship Industrial Might Asterisk, as a vessel transformed a small asteroid into a swarm of combat drones. Each drone was simple, just enough intelligence to identify Korvac biosignatures and deliver its payload. But simplicity was the point. The Korvac could adapt to complex weapons, but it was harder to evolve defenses against pure kinetic force delivered at relativistic speeds. Her engineering chief reported. We'll have the first 1,000 drones ready in 6 hours. The asteroid belt contains enough raw material for maybe 50,000 more. Back in Velthani space, Admiral Hayes opened a channel to all Coalition forces. Ambassador Kethvar, you asked the galaxy for help defending your worlds. Every other species offered you evacuation or sympathy. Humanity offers you something different, the guarantee that the Korvac will never threaten anyone again. The holographic display updated, showing human ships materializing throughout Korvac space. Stealth vessels appeared near breeding colonies. Factory ships began converting asteroid belts into weapon platforms, and assault fleets dropped out of hyperspace near major Korvac strongholds. Admiral, Kethvar whispered, your species, you're planning to attack their entire empire simultaneously. Not attack, Ambassador. Eliminate. The Korvac have proven they cannot coexist with other life. They adapt too quickly for conventional warfare, consume too efficiently for containment, and spread too rapidly for negotiation. So we remove them from the equation entirely. Throughout human space, the final preparations were complete. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier was positioned for the largest coordinated military operation in galactic history. Unlike every other species the Korvac had faced, humanity wasn't fighting to defend territory or protect resources. They were fighting to ensure that the nightmare consuming the Coalition worlds would never happen again. Captain Davis received the final go signal from Admiral Hayes. Around him, his Marines checked their weapons one last time. These weren't the standard defensive actions other species had attempted. This was humanity's doctrine of overwhelming response. When faced with an existential threat, eliminate it so completely that it could never rise again. The message was clear to anyone watching. Humanity didn't just wage war. They waged extinction campaigns. The Korvac Overmind had controlled a galactic empire for over 2 centuries, consuming 17 different species with methodical precision. Its bioships had adapted to every conceivable weapon, from plasma cannons to quantum disruptors. The hive mind had grown comfortable with its superiority, confident that no species could challenge its dominance. That confidence shattered in the first 60 minutes of humanity's war. At exactly 14:30 Galactic Standard Time, singularity bombs detonated simultaneously across 15 Korvac breeding colonies. These weren't conventional explosives. They were controlled black holes that collapsed entire planets into microscopic points before evaporating in bursts of radiation. The Korvac queens, ancient creatures that had birthed billions of warriors over the millennia, died without ever understanding what killed them. On the breeding world of Zephmar, Captain William Davis watched through his helmet's display as the planet folded in on itself. The massive organic cities that covered the surface, each one a living factory producing Korvac soldiers, simply vanished into nothingness. No adaptation could save them from the fundamental forces of gravity itself. Singularity deployment successful, Davis reported to Admiral Hayes. Zephmar's system is clear. No survivors detected. But the singularity bombs were just the opening move. Throughout Korvac space, human ships emerged from stealth to reveal weapons that the Bio-Empire had never encountered. Instead of energy beams that could be adapted to, humanity deployed kinetic kill vehicles. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to 90% the speed of light. The bioships tried to adapt, thickening their organic armor and developing energy shields. But there was no evolving around pure physics. When a tungsten rod traveling at relativistic speed struck a Korvac cruiser, the impact released more energy than a nuclear weapon. The bioship simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant of superheated plasma. Commander Jessica Roberts coordinated the assault on the Korvac logistics hub at Morval Station. Her squadron of human destroyers surrounded the massive organic structure, which pulsed with veins of green light as it processed resources from a dozen conquered worlds. Target is attempting to launch defense drones, her tactical officer reported. Negative effect, Roberts replied calmly. Deploy the nanoswarm. Clouds of microscopic machines poured from the human ships, each nanet programmed with a single purpose, to disassemble organic compounds at the molecular level. The Korvac bioships released every countermeasure they had developed over 2 centuries of warfare, but there was nothing in their evolutionary database that matched this threat. The nanoswarm ignored energy shields and passed through adaptive armor like it wasn't there. Within minutes, the kilometer-long station began dissolving from the inside out as billions of tiny machines converted its biological structure back into base elements. On the bridge of the Asterisk Defiance Asterisk, Admiral Hayes monitored dozens of simultaneous battles across 100 light-year radius. Her command staff worked with machine-like efficiency, coordinating strikes that the Korvac couldn't predict or counter. Report from the Outer Rim called out Major Amanda Roberts from her tactical station. The breeding complex at Thekvor has been neutralized. Orbital bombardment complete. No biosignatures detected planetside. Confirmed kills on 17 colonial hubs, added Communications Officer Bennett. Stealth teams report all major breeding facilities destroyed. The Korvac are losing their ability to replace casualties. What terrified the Korvac overmind wasn't just the effectiveness of human weapons. It was the scope of the attack. For the first time in centuries, the hive mind found itself fighting on every front simultaneously. Human forces struck at breeding worlds, supply lines, command nodes, and colonial outposts all at once. There was no time to adapt, no opportunity to learn from defeats and improve. They are everywhere. The Overmind screamed through its dying drones, its psychic voice reaching across the galaxy. How can such a small species mount such an offensive? We studied their fleet strength, only 300 vessels. What the Korvac hadn't understood was that humanity's 300 warships were just the tip of the spear. Behind them came converted cargo vessels loaded with kinetic projectiles, mining ships equipped with industrial fabricators, and automated factories that could convert entire asteroid belts into weapons platforms. Captain Davis led his Marines through the corridors of a Korvac command ship, their powered armor protecting them from the acidic atmosphere. The bioship's interior looked like the inside of a living creature, with walls that pulse and floors that ooze organic fluid. Remember the briefing, Davis told his squad. These ships have central nervous systems. Take out the brain cluster, and the whole vessel goes dead. They found the ship's command center deep in its core, a chamber filled with floating neural pods where Korvac officers interface directly with their vessel's nervous system. Davis activated his plasma cutter and systematically severed the connections. Without its brain, the kilometer-long bioship became nothing more than drifting meat. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on thousands of worlds. Human special forces infiltrated Korvax strongholds, planted explosives in breeding chambers, and eliminated command structures. Unlike previous enemies who had fought defensively, humanity's soldiers seemed to appear everywhere at once. The systematic destruction continued for 6 months. Every major Korvax world was either destroyed or sterilized. Every breeding queen was eliminated. Every bioship was tracked down and destroyed, even those that tried to flee into deep space. Major robots coordinated the final assault on the Korvax homeworld, a massive organic planetoid that served as the Empire's central nervous system. Human bombardment ships surrounded it, their weapons charging for one last strike. All stations report ready, Roberts announced. Singularity torpedo armed and targeted. The homeworld tried one last desperate adaptation, ejecting clouds of defensive spores and launching every remaining bioship in a suicidal charge. But humanity had learned to think 10 steps ahead. The attacking ships were destroyed by automated defense drones, and the spores were neutralized by targeted electromagnetic pulses. The Singularity torpedo struck the planet's core, and the birthplace of the Korvax Empire collapsed into itself. 2 centuries of galactic terror ended in a flash of X-ray radiation that marked the death of an entire species. When it was over, the galaxy fell silent. The Korvax Empire, which had seemed unstoppable for 200 years, had been completely erased in 6 months of systematic warfare. Not a single bioship remained. Not a single breeding facility survived. The species that had consumed 17 civilizations was itself consumed by humanity's methodical approach to total war. Other galactic powers watched the aftermath in stunned silence, finally understanding why no one had ever successfully invaded Earth. Humans didn't fight wars to win territory or capture resources. When threatened, they fought wars to ensure the threat could never rise again. The Transport Shuttle Coalition Hope descended through the toxic atmosphere of what had once been Morthak, the greatest breeding world of the Korvax Empire. Ambassador Kethvar pressed his face against the viewport, trying to comprehend the devastation below. Where massive biocities had once pulsed with alien life, now only glass craters remained, their edges still glowing with residual heat from human plasma bombardment. Radiation levels are dropping to safe parameters, announced the shuttle pilot, a young human lieutenant named Jackson. We should be able to walk the surface without full environmental suits in another week. Kethvar's translator struggled with a casual tone in the human's voice. How could anyone speak so matter-of-factly about the complete sterilization of an entire world? The Korvax homeworld had been home to billions of creatures, and now it was nothing but scorched rock and cooling magma. The shuttle touched down near what had been the planet's primary command complex. Through the viewport, Kethvar could see human soldiers moving through the wreckage with methodical precision. They wore advanced combat armor that made them look more like walking tanks than people, their scanners sweeping every inch of debris to ensure no trace of organic Korvax material remained. Admiral Rebecca Hayes met them at the landing pad, her weathered face visible through her helmet's transparent visor. Behind her, massive human construction mechs were already beginning the process of planetary reconstruction, clearing debris and preparing foundation sites for new installations. Ambassador, Hayes greeted him with a brief nod. Welcome to what used to be the heart of the Korvax Empire. Kethvar stepped carefully across the glassy ground, his 3 legs finding purchase on the uneven surface. Admiral Hayes, my people are grateful beyond measure for what you've done. Our 3 worlds are free, our people are alive, and the threat that consumed 17 species has been eliminated. He paused, watching as a human engineering team used industrial fabricators to break down the last remnants of a Korvax biospire. The massive organic structure, which had once reached into the planet's upper atmosphere, was being systematically dissolved and processed into base elements. But I must ask, Kethvar continued quietly, was such complete destruction really necessary? Could some of them have been spared, perhaps studied to prevent future threats? Hayes surveyed the desolate landscape through her helmet's display, her instrument showing atmospheric readings across the entire planet. Every measurement confirmed the same thing. No organic Korvax material remained anywhere on the world's surface. Ambassador, your coalition asked for help, she replied with the same matter-of-fact tone that all humans seem to use when discussing warfare. We gave you what we give any existential threat, total elimination. Colonel Robert Mitchell approached them, his combat armor bearing scorch marks and acid burns from months of fighting in Korvac bioships. He carried a plasma rifle that had been specially modified for close-quarters combat in organic environments, its barrel still warm from recent use. The Korvac consumed 17 species over 2 centuries, sir, Mitchell explained to Kethvar. We studied their expansion patterns, their adaptation methods, their biological imperatives. They were never going to stop, never going to change. Some threats can't be negotiated with, contained, or reformed. Kethvar's mandibles clicked nervously, but surely scientific study could have yielded valuable information. Their adaptive capabilities were remarkable. Perhaps we could have learned to replicate their biotechnology for peaceful purposes. No, Hayes cut him off, her voice carrying the finality of absolute conviction. When humanity goes to war, we go to win permanently. Half measures lead to future problems. The Korvac will never threaten anyone again because the Korvac no longer exist. As they spoke, massive human cargo ships began arriving in the planet's orbit. These vessels carried terraforming equipment, atmospheric processes, and the infrastructure needed to transform the dead world into something useful. Within a decade, Morthac would bloom with Earth vegetation, its toxic soil replaced by fertile ground capable of supporting life. The scope of human logistics amazed Kethvar almost as much as their military capabilities. Not only had they eliminated the Korvac Empire in 6 months, but they were already implementing plans to turn former enemy worlds into productive colonies. Across the galaxy, other species were having similar realizations about humanity's approach to warfare. On Centauri Prime, the insectoid council of hives convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of what they had witnessed. The humans didn't just defeat the Korvac. High Matron Zixke buzzed her subordinates. They removed them from existence so completely that future archaeologists won't find evidence they ever lived. This level of systematic destruction is unprecedented in galactic history. The crystalline beings of the Shardak Republic reached similar conclusions through their mathematical analysis. Human warfare doctrine appears optimized for permanent threat removal rather than territorial acquisition. Their collective consciousness calculated. Probability of human military action against Shardak Republic, minimal, provided no hostile intent toward human interests. Even the mighty Garathan Empire, masters of dark matter manipulation who had conquered 50 star systems, re-evaluated their strategic assessments of humanity. Emperor Gorvak himself issued a statement. The human species demonstrates that size of military force is irrelevant compared to willingness to use maximum force. We recommend all civilized species maintain peaceful relations with terror. Back on Morthac, Admiral Hayes activated a communication array to address the assembled coalition leadership. Representatives from dozens of species had come to witness the aftermath of humanity's intervention, their various forms of transportation creating a small fleet in orbit above the dead world. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Hayes announced, her voice carrying to every ship in the system. The Korvac threat has been permanently eliminated. All breeding facilities destroyed, all bioships neutralized, all command structures eradicated. This concludes humanity's military involvement in coalition space. Ambassador Velnash of the Aquatic Federation, whose species had refused to help the coalition during the crisis, now spoke with obvious nervousness. Admiral Hayes, the galaxy wishes to understand, how does humanity define threats that require such extreme responses? Hayes considered the question carefully. Around her, human soldiers continue their methodical cleanup operations, their scanners ensuring that not even microscopic traces of Korvac genetic material survived. Any species that proves incapable of coexistence with other sentient life, she replied. Any threat that adapts too quickly for conventional containment. Any enemy that views other species as nothing more than resources to be consumed. The implication sent ripples of concern through the assembled alien representatives. They had thought they understood warfare, territorial disputes, resource conflicts, political disagreements. But humanity approached war as a tool for permanent problem-solving. As human ships began their journey back to Earth, carrying soldiers who had spent 6 months systematically dismantling an entire galactic empire, the coalition species finally understood what they had witnessed. They had begged for help and received total war. They had asked for rescue and received the complete extinction of their enemies. The galaxy was safer now, free from the threat that had consumed 17 civilizations. But every species now understood exactly what human help truly meant. When humanity offered assistance against an existential threat, they didn't just solve the immediate problem. They ensured it could never happen again. The Korvac Empire was gone, erased so completely that future generations might doubt it had ever existed. And every species in the galaxy now knew why Earth had never been successfully invaded. Humans didn't fight wars to win territory or capture resources. When threatened, they fought wars to eliminate threats permanently. The price of human help was witnessing the methodical extinction of anyone they deemed truly dangerous. The Coalition had received that help, and they would never forget the awesome and terrifying efficiency with which humanity wages war.